If you want everybody to approve of you, you will become their prisoner. And we do that. Of course, we actually aren't their prisoner. We're our own prisoner, sadly, because it's not them, it's our own imprisoning that is involved here. So, to go against the stream requires a real courage and a commitment to our integrity and our well-being. And there are, well, I said there's lots of particulars, and I was just kind of taking that specific one to explore and reflect on a little. We can see it in terms of more broad themes also. There's the particular things we like or don't like, or want or don't want, or fear or don't fear. But we can also see in broader brush terms what we could call a sense of self-concern, where a lot of our activity, our mental activity, our daily activity is somehow all about me and my, and somehow preserving, protecting, promoting, enhancing me in some way or form. And that particular pattern of activity has with it a sense of a sort of being enclosed in a very limited world, where everything is looked at, is it doing something to me? Or is it doing something for me? And if it's not one of those others, one or the other, we're not interested. One of the reasons it's hard to stay with the breath is that it's not doing anything to us or for us particularly. Actually, it's doing a lot for us, because if it wasn't going on, we'd be dead. But we just take that for granted, that it's going to keep doing that. Sometimes it's useful to reflect on how we take that for granted, but that's not the theme for now. So the sense of self-concern, it's like, in fact, there's a Chinese teacher by the name of Wei Wu Wei. So I think he's a Taoist teacher, but he once observed, when asked why people suffer, he said, "Why do you suffer? You suffer because 99.9% of what you do is for yourself, and there isn't one. At least not in the sense that we imagine. That sense of it's all about me. It's all about me." Now, that's not to say that we don't have what is a very real and meaningful and important existence. And yet how we understand what that is. When we're in the bubble of self-concern, it's all about the appearance. It's all about the appearance and the surface of things. And so there's an invitation, if we notice that that's our tendency, if I've spent my whole life looking out for me and not really caring too much about anyone else, really helpful to spend some time acting in the support and the service of others. And this is something we hear a lot in spiritual teachings and Dharma teachings and teachings from other traditions. That sense of service, of offering, of giving support to the welfare of others. Even if it's just washing up the teacups at the end of the day. There's something incredibly lovely about just offering something that serves others. Because it's not just about me. It's not just about me. It's not getting my life any further ahead from an objective, practical, sort of conventional perspective. And yet we can feel and sense that, yeah, actually, there's something lovely about this. There's something freeing about not being enclosed and, in fact, entombed in that sense of self-concern. And so that is one basic orientation when patterning that we get caught in the momentum of. That if we see it, we need to learn to check it and to make and find ways to make simple expressions. It doesn't have to be grand gestures. We don't have to, abandon our life, sell our house and give it to charity and go off and work somewhere in some sort of extreme situation. It's a choice, it's a possibility. But it's not what's required of us. What's required is to see, if that's something that's not there, how do I bring it in? How do I take the risk that if I'm not just concerned about myself, to see what happens? There's an amazing, a wonderful amount of uplift and connection that comes through that. Acting out of concern for others rather than for oneself. But for most of us, probably that's actually not the bigger issue here. Most of us, the tendency for a lot of us at least in the West, and certainly many who come into contact or seek out spiritual teaching and practice, the tendency is much more towards self-negation, not excessive self-concern. Or certainly they have equal degrees of expression and impact or influence in us, in our lives. Self-negation, whereby rather than in the self-concern, it's all about me, we actually start to imagine or believe it's all about someone else, and it's not about me at all. That somehow I am not important. That the only way I can have any sense of importance is by looking out for others, or any sense of value or validity or meaningfulness is only in looking out for others. And we can hear spiritual teachings that suggest that somehow, the sense of self that we've inhabited isn't substantial or real. And this is true and profound teaching. But we can take that in such a way as suggest that therefore I should ignore myself. Or therefore I should somehow ignore or suppress or deny the needs, the legitimate needs or aspirations of this human being. And somehow place the needs or the aspirations of others in front of ours. I think that's one that a lot of us recognise as Westerners. Our conditioning easily leads us in that direction, particularly if we're somewhat self-reflective and aware. We can notice the unskillfulness and the painfulness of that excessive self-concern, and yet sometimes seek to replace it by its opposite, which is in fact much the same. So if you notice that it's really hard for you to take your needs and place them at the front, sometimes, going against the stream says, okay, let's try it and see. What would it be like to rush to the front of the lunch queue and get there and get your choice of all those yummy things? Imagine how hard that would be for most of us, to be seen, to be doing that. We wouldn't mind doing it, but if it's being seen that's really hard, isn't it? It's like about our self-images, the fear of what will be said or thought about us. So I kind of wonder what that's like for you to contemplate. To actually consider that the being that you call yourself is equally to be cherished and cared for and looked after, and sometimes given first priority. It becomes unhealthy when it becomes a pattern, when we get caught in a groove, and it doesn't matter which way the groove goes. When it becomes a groove, it becomes always, or almost always, this way. And if it's always about me, it's a problem. And if it's never about me, it's also a problem, in terms of that self-regard or self-negation. So what Dharma teaching is actually pointing to is the freedom to at times say, yeah, I can do without here. And at times, I'm having it, and sorry, you're not getting any. Or not quite like that maybe, but maybe it might feel that way sometimes. Now what do you do if there's just one biscuit on the plate? Really? What do you do? Well, what's it like to pick it up and eat it and really enjoy it? And there's still some people to come, but somebody's got to enjoy it. Because so much of the momentum that pulls us, that pushes us, that drives us, hinges on this particular way in which we separate out and give different value to what we call me and what we call everything else or everyone else. If we have a clear sense of how